So Nick, tell me a little bit about your story.
I was a police officer, got into cocaine when I was training. That was the bit where I was struggling, certainly whilst I was going through my training. Cut a whole long story short, that cocaine use escalated. I ended up having to leave the job. I moved to Berlin. I got involved with Albanians doing drug running and then ended up homeless in East Berlin. I was lucky enough to get into treatment.
Wow.
That's the short version.
That's a very short version. I'm very proud of you for a short version.
Thank you. Yeah, I'll go into it all another time.
I would love to interview you further and get your whole story. I think it would be really interesting so people who are coming to Reubs can have an identification of where it all came from. So what got you to start Reubs up?
I've had a company called Help for Addiction, which I set up about a year after coming out of treatment. When we tried to find rehab for me, it was almost impossible. We couldn't get it on the NHS. It was then trying to find one that was affordable, which was still a nightmare.
Yeah.
Through chance, I was lucky. But when I came out of treatment, I wondered, well, who else is in that position and what options are out there? And I just literally started researching. I looked at where all the rehabs are, what they charge, what they detox for, what their CQC ratings are, where they're located, literally everything. And I just made a database. And over time, that's become one of the largest addiction advisory services in the UK. But over the years, there were so many people that would call up and say, I can't go into rehab because I can't afford it. Yeah. I can't go into rehab because I've got children dependent or a pet dependent, a pet, or I work, I can't take time out. There were so many reasons. And I thought, what on earth do we suggest? There's nothing. So that's where I came up with the idea of rehabs and providing the treatment that they get in a residential environment, but moving that to an online environment, which is done in the evenings to cause minimal disruption.
Yeah.
And then we started seeing, blimey, this works.
Yes.
People are getting well. And that's where we're at.
We say this often, that us addicts, nobody can really understand or get our way of thinking unless you've been there yourself.
Absolutely.
And for somebody who's been there themselves to deliver the help that we need is, I think, crucially important. And I think that's why we find a lot of the professionals today, especially professionals that you've got on your database of help, have actually suffered from addiction in the past.
Absolutely. We decided, you know what, let's bring in the big guns as well. We called in Professor Mark Antonio Spada, who's an expert psychologist.
I cannot make it work with this substance.
Yes. Absolutely.
I cannot make my life work with this behavior. And I think similar again to what we discussed, I can't be in a relationship with this equivalent. With this person, I can't be in a relationship with this substance.
And his team and the therapy team that we've got that have all got lived experience from being in recovery, then obviously trained a lot. But also some of the therapists have it from a different angle where their family member was affected. So we have a whole combination.
Amazing.
What was it that made you feel that you wanted to be part of this Reubs journey?
Well, to be brutally honest, I've been asked to be part of a lot of different foundations and charities and places that can help people, and I never commit to something unless I've done my research or I feel like it's something I would do or would have done. It's catered for people just like me who need help, who can't go to residential, don't have anywhere to turn, and at a more cost-effective implication as well is massive interest to me. And I got to know you, and I got to know your story and where you're coming from, and meeting Mark Antonio and understanding, the therapists, psychotherapists, and all the professionals who are on board, that this is the real deal, because this is something that I would do myself. What I would love, Nick, is to give something to those who are watching this and my followers. What that looks like, you can have a little think, but I'd love to give them something that's free, that can help somebody today who's struggling with addiction, or like my husband, who has nowhere else to turn.
What would you say on your journey now is one of the most important aspects?
I would say it's a community. It's so important to have that community of other people like me to keep me on the straight and narrow, to go to if I need a question answered, if I'm suffering in silence, and also for the families as well. It's a support system.
What if, because I can see where you're going.
Yeah.
I provide you with a code.
Okay.
So people can go onto the App Store, they put in Reubs, they see the purple and the yellow heart, and where it says it asks for payment information, underneath there it will say use code.
Right.
I will give you that code.
Okay.
You can give that code out to your followers and that will give them free access. For as long
That's
as they want.
amazing. I wasn't expecting that actually. I was pushing for that. That was my top ask. Thank you so much, Nick.
If people will utilise that, then it would be.
I think that is a massive gift. Huge community of information.
There's so much.
People.
There's a whole toolbox on there. There's a community. There's a program that they can work through in their own time. There's loads. So they have all of that.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure.
That is wonderful. Thank you.